I think the most important thing for everybody is just honesty. Whatever situation you're in, you have to be open and honest with yourself. So if you are going to be in a troubled situation, you think cash flow is going to be a problem, you didn't have a strong balance sheet, be prepared to make tough decisions. And make those tough decisions early. Be honest with yourself about your likelihood of survival of whatever it is you're doing or some aspect of what you're doing. And if you have a lender or a landlord or something on the other side, cooperation is key.
Welcome to the Accelerated Investor Podcast with Josh Cantwell. If you love entrepreneurship and investing in real estate, then you are in the right place. Josh is the CEO of Freeland Ventures Real Estate Private Equity and has personally invested in well over 500 properties all across the country. He's also made hundreds of private lender loans and owns over 1,000 units of apartments. Josh is an expert at raising private money for deals, and he prides himself on never having had a boss in his entire adult life. Josh and his team also mentor investors and entrepreneurs from all over the world. He doesn't dream about doing deals. He actually does them, and so do his listeners and students. Now sit back, listen, learn, and accelerate your business, your life, and your investing with the Accelerated Investor Podcast.
So everybody, welcome back to Accelerated Investor. I'm really excited that you've been able to join me today, wherever you're at in the world, whether you're at home, social distancing, whether you're out for a walk. I would say on your way to the gym or in the gym, because a lot of people do listen to our podcast in the gym, but that's not happening right now. So maybe you're in your home office, maybe you're working out at home, maybe you're listening in your car, wherever you find Accelerated Investor. Just want to say thanks and tell you how much I appreciate you, how much gratitude I have for you engaging with us in our Accelerated Investor community. As you know, I love to do solo casts and guest interviews that I think are going to benefit you and your investing, your entrepreneurship as a business owner, being a better leader. And that's exactly what we have today. I've brought on three guests. Their names are David Linder, Richard Fry, and Nate Sin. And they are attorneys that work for a local firm called Buckingham. Buckingham has over 60 attorneys. And Nate Sin I work with on a pretty regular basis in our private equity fund when it comes to notes, mortgages, foreclosures, and workouts for our borrowers, people who are borrowing money from our private equity fund and using that to buy residential and commercial real estate. So let me just kind of open this up. Maybe Nate, go back to you, or David. What are your thoughts on, we talked a little bit while we're getting ready for this podcast about liquidity and cash flow, and just being able to sustain this, because I don't think anybody's going to pop right back, unless you're Amazon or, you sell pizzas, you're a pizza shop and everyone's ordering pizza. I don't think there's a lot of business that are just going to hockey stick right back. So it's going to be a little bit of a long game to stay liquid, to have cash on hand. And that's probably what a lot of business owners are managing now is, okay, I have the PPP money. I have some revenue coming in. I'm cutting some expenses out, but I've got to maintain this. So again, I think people are trying to cut deals everywhere they can to stay as liquid as possible. Is that right now, is that the number one objective for most of your clients?
Yeah, I'll jump in first. So I'm having a couple different conversations. So for the business owner clients or property owner clients, then yes, it's managing the cash flow, trying to stay liquid, understanding what your options are. If you manufacture goods, you ship goods, we might see a rise in reclamation actions, where you ship your goods out and you typically do it on a net 15 or net 30. And payment isn't coming. So what are your rights? Can you grab those goods back and avoid litigation that way? Set your reclamation demand. So some of these remedies have kind of fallen out of favor. We might see that again. And at the same time, you're going to have to be looking at your accounts payable, right? And what can you trim? How can you manage your payments to cut your expenses, not really understanding how long this is going to go and when your cash flow is going to pick back up from your receivables. Mm-hmm. And the other side of my conversations I'm having are with lenders. And the lenders so far aren't really seeing a huge effect but I think the defaults are coming. And, we talked a little bit earlier, the key period is going to be after this initial round of stimulus money. Because if you look at, what's forgivable under the PPP, well, it's primarily payroll. So I have some lender clients who view this as the government's way to kick the unemployment can down the road. They're anticipating having to front a lot of money for unemployment wages, and they basically pass the buck to business owners. Well, in the kind of, life cycle of, our economy, take commercial property, for example, you got to have the business revenue to pay the rent. The rent has to go to the property owner, who then has to pay the bank.
Right.
So eventually it's going to trickle down to the lenders too. So they're bracing for kind of scrubbing their loans and bracing for who they anticipate are going to be problem loans and early. And then just like retail business owners or manufacturing business owners, the lenders have to do the same thing, where they have to make the business decision, like, are we going to try to help our borrowers weather the storm, or are we going to try to shore up our position if this actually starts happening?
Got it. And David, what are your thoughts on liquidity? You're in the middle of a lot of transactions. I have heard, and I know that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, especially on stabilized multifamily loans, they're requiring a whole year, some cases $500,000, $1 million of cash being put into an escrow account, essentially for the prepayment of interest and some expenses and expenses like that. So again, liquidity becomes a major issue because you have to put more money into a deal or more money down. Or if you're in a cash out refi situation in the middle of this, Fannie and Freddie is requiring more dollars to be set aside to, again, kind of guarantee their loans get paid over the next year. So liquidity, again, an issue there. What are your thoughts on that?
I'd say, kind of echo Nate's comments. I think people are, as owners or landlords, you're looking to trim costs and reduce expenditures at this point. So it could be deferring capital projects or deferred maintenance and things like this, which, could impact the property value. But at this point, you probably are better off maintaining some liquidity as long as you can, just due to the uncertainty or due to increased lender requirements. So I think that's definitely the case.
Yeah. I've got some friends of mine who I'd like to hear from all of you guys, because you have different types of clients. I have some friends of mine who are salivating about the defaults that might be happening and saying, hey, even before COVID-19, we were expecting a recession in the next 6 to 18 months. And they were keeping a lot of dry powder ready to go on a buying spree to buy commercial buildings, apartments, portfolios of single family properties, self-storage facilities, all these different kind of things. And they're looking at COVID-19 as just something that exacerbated what was coming anyway, and probably just made it even worse than what the recession would have been. And so, I've got friends of mine who are raising equity or raising debt to get ready to go on a buying spree. I know Nate works a lot in the receivership area. Do you have clients also that are kind of looking at this as an opportunity to buy properties at a lower price, to get things on sale? And how are those guys gearing up for this? Again, I think liquidity and raising money, relationships with equity investors, relationships with banks is a big part of it. So do you guys see some of your clients kind of gearing up for this opportunity? And if so, what are some things that they're looking to try to do? And how long do you think that they'll be waiting? Like, obviously, we just said there's not really deals right now, but there's going to be in the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. So maybe Richard, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on what's coming down the pipe?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting situation. I know Nate deals with a lot of people who are already in distress. I've actually had a few clients who were already going through the process to refinance. This happened. They are now getting a better rate. I've seen low threes for commercial or residential property, which is pretty unheard of.
Right.
They're getting some cash out. And they are, like you said, preparing for those opportunities to come about. I don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately, it could be 60 to 90 days, or it could be 180 days.
Mm-hmm.
But I think knowing the market that you play in and continuing to monitor those deals, there's going to be properties that come up that are in that situation. And if you have the cash, pull out a couple $100,000 of equity out of what you already have through a refi, and then have that available to kind of capitalize on those opportunities that come up in the market, because there certainly are going to be a few. So if people with a strong balance sheet, I think right now should certainly look at a refi, or like you said, raising cash, so you're going to be able to jump on these opportunities that come up in the near future.
My newest and most powerful real estate investing book, The Flip System, is now available. And for a limited time, you can grab your free copy at getflipsystem.com/podcast. Using the same proven principles, secrets, and investing strategies I'm sharing in this book, I've been able to personally close over 750 highly profitable real estate deals over the last 15 years, make over 400 private lender loans, raise over $30 million of private money, and acquire over 2,000 units of apartments. Get my newest book now for free for a limited time at getflipsystem.com/podcast. That's getflipsystem.com/podcast. Again, I have some of my friends that are really good at raising equity that are just like, hey, we're waiting, kind of, they're rubbing their hands together, just kind of, hey, let's wait 6 months. Let's see what happens with prices. And there's going to be even the guys that are really the sellers who are well capitalized, but maybe just a little bit older, guys that are 65, 75, 80, which is a lot of the sellers that we see in the multifamily space, guys that have just owned the building for 20, 30 years and just don't want to go through another round of this. They don't want to go through another issue, another, 2008, another pandemic. They don't want to improve the buildings. They're just kind of done. They were planning on cashing out, and now they're like, oh my God, like there's not going to be any buyers left. So I might as well retrade the price and lower the price a little bit. I think at a minimum, there's going to be quite a bit of that, because they're not necessarily selling because they're distressed. They're just selling because they've owned the building for a long, long time. Then you're going to have significant distress, which we've talked about, some of these commercial buildings, strip centers, and obviously some multifamily guys that were buying, because guys, think like 90 days ago, people were buying multifamily properties Class A at like a 5 cap with almost no cash flow. And now they're going to have rent problems, and those properties are going to go into default. It's going to happen. Nate, you obviously work in a lot of receivership situations and foreclosure. What are your thoughts on this next 18 months? And again, clients, we're going to be one of those guys that are buying. As you know, Nate, we have this private equity fund. We're kind of in the process of winding it down in order to create liquidity, and we're taking those dollars to now invest in what are some deals that are going to be coming. So what are your thoughts on this discussion?
I have clients salivating too, and those guys are court-appointed receivers.
Yeah, sure.
They're looking to be busy. I don't know when it's going to come down the pipeline. I think it's going to be within the next 6 months. You're really going to start seeing kind of the defaults. The practical problem we're going to have, particularly in states that are judicial foreclosure states, like Ohio is, the courts have basically hit the pause button for several months. So I have ongoing cases. I've got ongoing receiverships where I just so happened to file a motion to appoint an auctioneer 2 days before the state got closed. That's
right.
Not been opposed, and it's just sitting there in limbo. And when we come out of the kind of courts operating at reduced dockets and on emergency basis only, there is going to be this backlog. And there's going to be a backlog to clean up the dockets that have just been set there. So I think everything's just going to be delayed. And then there is going to hit a point where there's going to be a start of new cases filed. So from a foreclosure standpoint, we are going to see an increase in foreclosures. And I expect to see commercial foreclosures coming too. But when you file your case, you might have a longer time to get through to the end, to get through to the sheriff's sale or judicial officer sale, where as a lender, maybe your goal is to take the property back REO. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just to liquidate, get out. So you're going to see lenders looking at alternative remedies like receiverships. Ohio has its own receivership statute. It's fairly robust in terms of selling commercial real estate. In addition to Ohio, because we operate in multiple states, there is the Uniform Commercial Receivership Act, Uniform Commercial Real Estate Receivership Act. A handful of states have enacted that, and that kind of mirrors a lot of the things that are in Ohio statute and provides the actual state law basis to take this alternative remedy to sell properties. So I think particularly in the judicial foreclosure states, you are going to see these opportunities come up, but they're going to come up through third parties. They're going to come up through a receivership who is, has fiduciary duties to creditors and to the court. And you're also going to see them start coming up in bankruptcies. The Small Business Restructuring Act became effective February 19th this year. Perfect timing, right?
Right.
You have this kind of Small Business Restructuring Act that makes it more affordable and easier for small businesses to file Chapter 11 bankruptcies. And the CARES Act actually amended that statute and increased the debt caps. So now you can have $7.5 million and still file. So I think you're going to see an increase in bankruptcy filings too. But Chapter 11 has kind of gone the way of liquidations. Most Chapter 11s you see nowadays, they're not reorganizations like they were intended to be originally. They're liquidations. So you're going to see a lot of sales coming out of bankruptcies too. And so it's either going to be a debtor in possession, it's going to be an operating trustee, a small business reorganization trustee, a court-appointed receiver. One of these kind of, whatever you call it, it's going to be a third party that has fiduciary duties that's going to be offering properties for sale. Those are deals that I see that are coming.
And David, taking what Nate just said, if you're working with a client, someone like us, who's a buyer in this market, who's looking at deals that are potentially on sale, what are some ways, maybe you guys know of some ways that, and I'm asking this for a selfish reason, but what are some ways that guys who are looking for acquisitions, looking for new opportunities, to find those in this upcoming maybe 6 to 18 months? Is it having relationships with attorneys that are in the know? Is it having relationships with commercial brokers? Is it making relationships with court-appointed receivers? Are there lists that you can buy of bankruptcies or foreclosures or real estate taxes that are behind? My audience is always looking for an in or a new strategy or a new way to find a great deal. What are your thoughts on some different maybe potential opportunities or ways to find some deals or some things that might be on sale in the next 2 years or so?
Yeah, well, I think the personal contacts are usually one of the best. I mean, talking to your attorney, talking to other people you meet, brokers are always pretty well informed. I mean, Nate can probably talk more about the things that are in bankruptcy or foreclosure and how to locate those items. But, I deal more with sort of market properties. And the brokers are always a great source of insight in that. I stay in contact with them. I'll let you know if they're shopping something around. I mean, there's all kinds of listings, LoopNet and others that, again, that's maybe not going to be as under the radar, but certainly, I think you'll see more activity there, and just kind of keeping your ear to the ground. But maybe Nate can talk about the how you might find some of the real distressed properties maybe before that's.
Sure.
Yeah, I can add to what David said. And when you were asking your question, in my head I was answering yes to all the above.
Okay. Sure.
I think the relationships are key. Right. So it's always good in any market to have these kind of relationships. So particularly if you're looking for distressed property, then you need to know attorneys that do this type of work. You should know bankers that are in the special assets groups of different lenders. You should talk to receivers. You should talk to auctioneers. See who in your local market are doing this kind of work. Now, how to find, when things are going to be coming up like this, there are services available. You can pay for in a daily email of every Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing that's in the nation. Now you're going to get First Energy's filing. You're going to get Burry Coal. You're going to get, Neiman Marcus filed yesterday.
Right.
So you're going to get those notifications, which don't have anything to do with you. But maybe you see there's a filing of some random LLC, and if you're in the Cleveland area, it's the Northern District of Ohio. Well, it takes some legwork. You can always access federal filings through the PACER system. So you can go PACER, it's PACER, and you can sign up and you can access, and you have to pay by page. So it can get very expensive if you're doing a lot of this. But it's reasonable if you're not, and you can look up any case. But you're going to kind of have to do your investigation to figure out what it is. Maybe there are some properties that you have your eye on that you've been hearing rumors are in distress. Well, do the legwork ahead of time, figure out who the owner is, and watch the court dockets. A lot of court dockets are online now too. You can set up your Google alerts. And then there are services to pay for court docket alerts too. I mean, at our firm, we have Westlaw services, which are a little pricey, but they have docket alerts and court wire alerts. So I'm looking out, I'm in my office for the first time in 2 months today.
Yeah, sure.
Looking out the window, if I see this office building right here, if my eye's on it, and I think that they're in distress, I'm going to find out who the owner is. I'm going to set up a Google alert for that owner. I'm going to set up a court wire alert for that owner. And then I'm going to watch the bankruptcy dockets for that owner as well.
Wow, that's great. Fantastic advice. Are you ready to automate and explode your real estate investing? We're searching for extremely motivated individuals who are sick and tired of wasting time and want to finally see real results from their real estate investing business. We're searching for investors looking to get to the next level and become a bigger, better version of themselves while being a more successful real estate investing entrepreneur. Apply for mentoring and coaching at joshcantwellcoaching.com/podcast. That's joshcantwellcoaching.com/podcast. So guys, as we kind of round third here and head for home, I'd like to just ask each of you, and we'll start here with Richard, just any kind of final parting shots or words of advice that we haven't gotten to for business owners, for residential and commercial real estate investors, just things that should either watch out for, or maybe it's just, what are you seeing in the market that's positive? Just any kind of final thoughts that you'd like to pass along to our audience to not only just keep their head above water in this tough time, but really thrive going forward. What are some things that you're telling your clients, things that we should know that we haven't talked about yet? Could be anything that's kind of on your mind or on the tip of your tongue that you think they should know as we kind of round up here.
Yeah, I think, and both David and Nate touched on the personal connections that you could have. I think now is a extremely important time to keep up with those personal connections. Reach out to the people that that are other business owners, that are your brokers and agents. I mean, these people are going through the same struggles that we are, working from home. I know there's a bunch of agents as to how do you find properties. Well, there's a bunch of agents and brokers that are now working from home, maybe aren't as busy. They should be keeping an eye out. They will be keeping an eye out.
Right.
I think that there's also some, tax programs that you can take advantage of. One thing you mentioned before, there might be a lot of people who've owned property for 20 to 30 years that are trying to move out of the business. There are like-kind exchange opportunities to move that money into a Delaware statutory trust where you avoid the management aspect of the property, but still are able to collect a good return without having to pay tax on the proceeds of the sale. So just keep your options open. Liquidity is a great thing to keep if you have a strong balance sheet to go out and be ready to jump on those opportunities.
That's fantastic, guys. I'm gonna have David comment. I just have a feeling we're only scratching the surface here with all the things that we could talk about, and we'll have to set up maybe a series of these podcasts, and maybe each of you on separately. So, David, because Richard, we if we had time, we could definitely jump into opportunity zones and 1031s and the Delaware statutory trusts and some of those kind of things. That's a whole nother conversation that we definitely should be having. So, David, same thing for you. just kind of final thoughts, parting shots, words of advice for our business owners and real estate investor.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess the bottom line is crisis always brings opportunity. So I think being prepared, educating yourself, learning about the government programs that are out there, keeping an eye out in your local area for opportunities through some of the methods Nate's talked about, and staying in touch with people like Rich said. You'll hear about things, and it's a good chance, if you have properties now to take a look at, strengthening them. Maybe you have tenants that aren't going to make it, maybe it's time to evaluate, are those the kind of tenants you want to cut ties with as soon as you can, and look for something that's going to be more stable if something like this ever happens again. Maybe tenants who aren't as reliant on walk-in traffic, or have better online business models. And by the same token, if you're a tenant, maybe you're looking at reducing your space. A lot of office tenants have found, look, we're all at home now, and we're managing to function. So maybe it's a chance to reduce your footprint if you're a tenant, and reduce that expense. That's not as good from the owner side, but that's what tenants are going to be looking at. So that's keep in mind as well.
That's great advice. And actually our office lease is actually up later on this year. And to your exact point, David, we're already hearing from the broker, the owner, about if we can cut a deal now to basically guarantee them that we'll stay. They're already very open to concessions because they're worried about the long-term health of their property and the office suite that we have. And so I would pass along to our audience, again, if you have a lease coming up, and you can cut a deal that allows you to feel more comfortable and the landlord to feel more comfortable, maybe extend your lease and be able to even get it at a lower cost per square foot. Now is the time to do that, right? Because everybody's looking for more, longer term, more not permanent, but longer term contracts that they can count on that are in less likelihood of default. So I would encourage all of our audience to renegotiate those deals now. It's actually better for you and the landlord. Or if you are the landlord, make that deal with your tenant. Maybe give your tenant some concessions to keep them in your building and extend their lease out for a couple more years. Nate, as we kind of wrap up, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I think just this whole situation has kind of made me do a little bit of self-evaluation. And I think the most important thing for everybody is just honesty. Whatever situation you're in, you have to be open and honest with yourself. So if you are going to be in a troubled situation, you think cash flow is going to be a problem, you didn't have a strong balance sheet, be prepared to make tough decisions. And make those tough decisions early. Be honest with yourself about your likelihood of survival of whatever it is you're doing or some aspect of what you're doing. And if you have a lender or a landlord or something on the other side, cooperation is key. Now if you're struggling on cash flow, now is not the time to hunker down. It's to cooperate. And out of that, you might be able to find that you revamp your business, you pivot a little bit, and you can succeed. So I think you need to be honest, and you need to be open to change and innovation on every single side here. And I think everybody's going to get through it one way or the other.
Yeah, you bet. Guys, fantastic advice today. I know we've been working on getting this together for about 60 days, so I appreciate you guys carving out some time. And for my audience, again, want to make sure that you reach out to the guys, Richard Fry, David Linder, and Nate Sin with Buckingham. Again, their website is bdblaw.com. And again, that /COVID-19 is a fantastic resource page with multiple articles from our guests today on everything from general business counsel advice, labor and unemployment updates, Family First Coronavirus Response Act. I'm kind of reading from their website right now, the CARES Act, and then some of the Ohio reopening guidelines. Really tons of great videos in there and content and resource pages, white source papers for you guys to take a look at. Again, bdblaw.com/COVID-19. Guys, thanks so much for being on today on Accelerated Investor.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, Josh.
You've been listening to Josh Cantwell and the Accelerated Investor Podcast. Leave a comment on our iTunes channel and let us know what you want to learn next or who you'd like Josh to interview. While you're there, give us a 5-star rating and make sure to subscribe so you can be the first to hear new episodes. Follow Josh Cantwell and his companies, Strategic Real Estate Coach and Freeland Ventures, on all social media platforms now, and stay up to date on new training and investment opportunities. To start your journey toward the lifestyle you've always dreamed of, apply for coaching at joshcantwellcoaching.com.